Hey guys, hope you've all been well. I'm Jeff, and welcome back to JDS Design Labs. So after I posted my last video about hosting a website from home, a bunch of you had questions about SSH, changing default ports, and whether standard ports were safe to use and actually secure. So today I'm going to take it a step further, and I'll show you how you can change your default SSH port from the default of 22 to something a little safer. It's one of the fastest ways to cut down on brute force attacks, and it'll tighten up your home lab. And the cool thing is, you can apply this method to other services too. You just need to know where to go into the config files and make sure to set up the firewall rules properly. Before we get into it, this video is meant to teach you how to change your default SSH ports to less common ones, but it's not a silver bullet. I always recommend having an extra layer of protection, something like Nginx Proxy Manager. This will help you safely proxy your services, but I'll be covering that in a later video. For now, I'm just going to teach you how to change those ports. So let's jump on in. So just before we start changing anything, let's talk a little bit about why this matters. Port 22 is the default for SSH, which means that bots and scanners are hitting it all the time, trying random usernames and passwords, hoping to crack it and break their way in. This is called brute force attacking. Now, changing the port doesn't make your server invincible, but it does make it less visible. That's called security by obscurity. It's not a full defense, but it does reduce the amount of noise and attention that your server gets. Think of it like locking your side door instead of leaving your front door wide open for anyone to walk in. The first thing you want to do is pick a new port for SSH. You can't just use any number though. You want to avoid common ones that scanners often check, like 2222, 8080, or 3389. Instead, choose something in the range between 49152 and 65535. These are known as dynamic or private ports and are much less likely to conflict with other services. For this video, I'm going to use port 54321. It's high, it's uncommon, and it keeps things simple. Now, go ahead and SSH into your server the usual way, using port 22. We're going to make the changes while the session is open, but don't close it yet. After we switch ports, we'll open a second terminal to test the new connection, just in case something goes wrong. Next, we'll edit the SSH configuration file so it listens on our new port. Scroll down until you find the line that says port 22. Go ahead and remove the pound symbol and change 22 to the port that you picked earlier. In my case, like I said, I'm using 54321. While we're here, it's a good time to tighten up a couple other things. I recommend setting permit root login no to block root logins entirely. And if you've already set up SSH key authentication, you can also set password authentication to no to prevent any password logins. Once you've made your changes, save the file and exit. Now that the config's updated, restart the SSH service to apply the changes using sudo systemctl restart sshd. Remember, don't close this terminal session yet. We need to test the new port in a second window to make sure everything works. If something went wrong, the original session is your safety net. And if you log out, then you're gonna have to restart if it didn't work properly. So go ahead and connect, but this time add your port number, -P. If you did everything correctly, you'll be prompted for your passphrase if you set one, and then you'll log in. And just to be sure that port 22 is no longer working, we'll go ahead and exit and then reconnect with no port option. This will send it through the default port of 22. And as you can see, we get our connection refused. If you're accessing this server from outside your local network, you'll also need to update your router's port forwarding rule. But again, let me reiterate. Don't open port 22 to the internet because someone will try and hack you. You should really only do this if you're testing or if it's going to be a last resort. You can use something like a proxy manager or a VPN to log in securely. Log into your router's admin interface. Here I'm using my Edge router, and find the rule that forwards port 22 to your server. If it's not there, just add it. Replace that with the new port you chose earlier. So once again, I'll use 54321. Now, if you're self-hosting any of these from home, here are some other services worth moving off their default ports. Admin panels like Proxmox, Pi-hole, or your router often use ports like 8443 or 8080. They're really easy targets for scanners. Docker apps like Vault Warden and Portainer, they typically use 9000 or 8123. You can change those in your Docker run command or your docker compose.yml. Remote access ports like RDP or VNC are usually using ports like 3389 and 5900. These are also constantly scanned and should never be exposed. And then mail servers are often running port 25, but these are typically blocked by your ISP to hammer down on spamming. Always check your external mappings. And just like with SSH, always remember, make sure to update your service configs and your firewalls or port forwarding rules. Alright, and that's how you change your SSH port and secure your server a little bit more. It's a simple change, but it cuts out on a ton of noise from the bots that are scanning port 22. And it keeps your server a little bit more under the radar. If you haven't already, check out my previous video on how to set up a web server. I go over SSH key authentication and how to set it up, which pairs perfectly with this video. And in future videos, I'm going to be covering things like fail to ban and how to set up your own VPN servers so that you can access your home lab remotely. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comment section below. I pretty much respond to all of them there. Be happy to help you out and see if we can get your home lab working even better. If this video gave you a hand or you learned something new, consider liking and subscribing. It really helps me out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.